thanks everyone for coming along. We have come down from our marketing team, from the SATC marketing team, to talk about 2021, the year of South Australian wine. Many familiar faces in the room today, being Barossa born and bred, but for those that don't know me, my name is Jen, and I've got Lou with me today. So I work in the digital marketing team within our wider marketing team at SATC. Lou can introduce herself.
Yes, I'm from the interstate marketing team, domestic marketing team, so really promoting South Australia to our key markets of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, but obviously over the last year we've really touched every single state, so which has been super important when borders are closing. We've been quite fluid with that.
An interesting time.
So as Leah had said, actually in December, we decided that given that the wine industry was being hit by hard by trade, we needed to think of a campaign or an initiative that we could launch. So in early 2021, in January, we launched with Perza, the Year of South Australian Wine. So it launched with a teaser 30-second video, and from there it's really escalating quite quickly with branding, and we are rolling out paid media. But today we're really talking about how, as a Cellar door, you guys can jump on board and also share this message. So I don't know if that's going to work. If not, we'll share this deck. No. So how to get involved. Right from the get-go, we spoke with our brand team, and we knew that from a Cellar door, from your experiences and your branding, and also from an event perspective, using our logo just wasn't going to cut it. And from a consumer perspective as well, it's not something that they could share on. So from there, a 2021 Year of South Australian Wine branding was designed, which is what that first screen was, with an array of different images, logos, that you can really put on all of your assets where you see that it's appropriate. So how we're really encouraging you all to get involved, all of this information is housed on our corporate site, and at the end of this we'll share all the links. But share the video, use the branding in your own brand message, and really this is just a little bit of a snapshot on how it can be used. We also have created a Instagram story Giphy, so for brands who can't do all of the other graphic design, it's just a really quick and easy way of adding the Year of South Australian Wine logo and branding onto your Instagram stories and to share that message. This is just an example of from using the Year of Wine hashtag, which is See South Australia and the wine glass emoji. This is actually just some of the screenshots we've taken from that, following that hashtag. So consumers can start to actually follow that hashtag and piece together the story of what we're trying to communicate across the board, and they're really seeing that same message.
So to get involved with 2021, the Year of South Australian Wine, and across the board from SATC, is to start by having your ATDW listing, which stands for the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. The major categories for this is accommodation, events, tours, attractions and hire. Have I forgotten any? And food and drink, which is where wineries come into play. So the ATDW was established by all the states and territories getting together to create a platform for tourism, or for the tourism industry. What we do then is southaustralia.com is an example of a distributor of that content, and there's actually up to 270 distributors of that content. So by putting half an hour aside and putting your best digital foot forward by creating your ATW listings, you are increasing your exposure dramatically. So on the screen there are a couple of examples. So you can see Atsy's Corner is an example of an event. You have Rymal, which is their food and drink listing, and then you've also got Hither and Yon, which is their tour listing, and you can see that they have differentiated that by having Hither and Yon experiences, so it doesn't look like duplicated content coming through onto southaustralia.com, which is really important as well, so making sure you're thinking about it from the consumer journey. By having their ATW listings done and optimized, we're able to look at how we can include them in our paid advertising and how we can support that through all of our bought media. So we have looked at southaustralia.com, and all of our marketing is generated and run through all of our brand pillars. So wineries fit very nicely into our accessible provenance brand pillar, and we've generated that through creating a winery hub on southaustralia.com. That means that this will last a lot longer than the year-long campaign, but will be available to our consumers and those that, or our audiences that engage via our accessible provenance brand pillar for years to come as well. We will, in a couple of slides, show you some examples, but coupled with our winery pages, we also have our What's On page, which is specifically around winery events. Given 2021, Year of South Australian Wine, we've reintroduced our What's On This Month page as well, and then we've actually pulled out a carousel specific that highlights all of our wine events. Further to that, we are looking at paid media from a Facebook and Instagram perspective, and then we're also doing a range of print media as well.
So with that print media, we have the Friday Advertiser, alternate dates, and also SA Weekend. SA Weekend is more of the events focus and really driving the visitation into region and to these events. So again, another really important reason for an ATDW listing, because we have a list, and having that that listing up a good time before your event is about to start.
To put that into perspective,
Yeah.
so we're already planning now for our media that's going to go out in June and July. So we are trying to plan months in advance. So if there is any opportunity where, it is understandable that events in particular are very nervous about confirming and moving forward with events and not sure if it'll be cancelled or, putting the time and the effort and the money behind that promotion. But for those events that are able to be confirmed and then get their listings up, it means that they have those months worth of exposure. It's really challenging from our perspective when we have someone reach out and go, our event is this weekend. There's not really much that we can do, and the exposure that you'll get in, 3 or 4 days versus 3 or 4 months is quite dramatic. On top of that, hopefully you would have seen or read somewhere that we have announced that Merrick Watts is our ambassador. He's obviously very engrossed in the wine industry, having his WetSet level 4 and his love and passion of wine. So he is our wine ambassador. We are also doing a number of activations. So we did Adelaide Street Stomp in March, and we're looking at doing the Weekend of Wine in June as well. So on the screen at the moment is our What's On page. On the left, you can see our main What's On page, and that's broken down into 3 different segments. So we have our events to plan for, which is really targeted at those interstate market, because they're events that are 2, 3, 4 months in advance. So it's allowing the time and breadth to book accommodation, figure out flights and how they're going to get here and what they're going to do. Our major events are what's coming up in the next kind of month or 2, and then we have our featured events as well. This is then aligned to our press ads, and then our press ads are also aligned to our paid media ads as well. This is an example of the wine events page where we have pulled out those wine events for that month as well. So combined, we have about 5,000 visits to these pages in a week. And then on top of that, through our paid media, we have been able to, so far, we are 4 months into the year, we've been able to highlight about 30 to 35 wine events across the 12 different regions.
Sorry, can I just ask you, featured events? Is that paid? Are people, how do you get to be a featured event?
No, so it comes down based on the event and then based on what the target is and the kind of the draw card and the scale of what it is. So our goal is to promote as much as we can to drive visitation out to regions as well. So there's a combination of things that are taken into consideration, but definitely those events that are keeping in touch and keeping top of mind. And another thing that we often struggle with is to get appropriate imagery to then be able to promote. So when guys like yourselves send through media kits that has your media release and has links to images, we love you for that, because it makes our lives a lot easier when we're looking at how we can promote and what we can include in paid media. So keeping top of mind, we definitely recommend, feel free to email us at any time.
So this is,
sorry, we'll go back to this page. So as I was explaining before, we drive our winery pages through our accessible provenance brand pillar. This is not everything that is included on that winery page, but just to pull out a few examples. So we're looking at things, we're finding that the intrastate market they can go around, they can do a lot of the things themselves. They can jump in a car, they self-drive, and what they're looking for is something a little bit different. They're looking for a little bit more, and they're really, really curious. So highlighting things like unique cellar doors, wine tasting experiences, sustainable and organic. So we look at our SEO and look at what people are searching for and those keywords that are really resonating to make sure that we can create the content and we can serve them that content at the time when they're looking for it. So these are just a couple of examples, and I do encourage you to have a look at these pages and have a look at the different carousels. We worked quite closely with Barossa Tourism as well, and when they heard that we were doing 2021, the Year of South Australian Wine, they actually came down to SATC headquarters, and they actually did a brief and a pitch to us and looked at all the different wineries across the Barossa and said, here's our recommendations, here's what we are able to put forward when we're looking at key terms such as sustainable and organic, etc. So they are also behind you and backing you and being like, here's how we can best represent Barossa as the region.
Can we just clarify, you're pulling this direct from ATDW, are you?
Yes.
Okay, right,
Yeah. Why it's super important as well when you look at consumers and what they're doing these days. Most people are now in the mind frame of booking in advance, but there's still a good portion that will pull up their phone as they're driving to you, and they want to know, are you open? What are you offering? What are you doing? So particularly spending half an hour and making sure that content is then correct, because that'll pull through onto southaustralia.com and up to the 270 other websites that distribute that content.
So this is just an example on the far left there, the pink press ad, that's our branding. That's just really trying to, when we launched, and we're just still trying to cement that year, like this campaign message throughout the year. That is our Year of Wine branding press ad, and that will continue to run throughout the year. And then on the one on the right, the purpley blue one, that's the event, one of the event ones. So it wasn't the one and only, so we are actually just rolling it through, and again, like Jen said, we're really planning in advance from a graphic design perspective, and also just making sure that we do have as many events as we can for the consumers out there. And then just these are the social carousels for our What's On carousel. It's super important from an intrastate perspective, but for an interstate perspective as well. Why does an interstate market want to come to South Australia when they can get food and wine in their own state? So we need to make sure that we're selling and telling them the different story, like why do they need to come here and have our food and wine? So it's really important that's why we pull out those unique wine experiences, those unique cellar doors, any point of difference that you can, if you're not even sure, just email us and we are very happy to help you with that, because we want as many visitors as possible to be experiencing our food and wine.
And something we've found is that everyone is very humble rather than kind of shouting out their unique selling point. So if you have a unique selling point and obviously you're very proud of it, then how can you leverage and how can you work that to the best of your ability? So we encourage you to jump onto our industry and our corporate website. Under the support menu, there is a dedicated Year of South Australian Wine. That's where you can download the videos. That's where all of our branded assets and everything that you can use to overlay any of that 2021 Year of South Australian Wine onto your own. As Lou said, it's meant to complement what you guys are already doing. So Lou is heading up the campaign, then there's myself from the digital aspect, and we've got our details up on the screen there as well, so feel free to email us at any time. We will be getting the guys to send out our details as well, so that you have that on hand. But thanks, and all the best. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Guys, we're just going to open for some questions now, because no doubt there's a number of people looking at ways and how you can work collectively with the SATC. So firstly, any questions regarding the Tourism Industry Development Fund? For Leah. So is anyone looking at a project or looking at a new development concept or upgrading an existing tourism experience?
Well, depending on the money, we would potentially like to do a cellar door.
Okay.
On our properties.
And what was your business, sorry?
Paisley.
So as far as your product concept and what you're looking to do, what were you hoping talk today?
Well, we had an initial plan, which I think we've had to downgrade with money. That I think we have a spectacular view just around the corner, so we kind of really want to take advantage of that and just create like a nice little intimate space, maybe with a couple of little private rooms so we can do some smaller tastings.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. And that's the type of thing we're looking for with the Tourism Industry Development Fund. Look, I'm going to leave my cards here, and we have the guidelines online, but really encourage everyone to have a look at this at the moment. It's open till March 2022, and you may not have the ideas concrete in your mind right now. You might have concepts that you want to work through. We have a couple of business support managers in our team in the destination development area. If you go online and have a look at Tourism Industry Development Fund, all the guidelines, there's also a link to, we have a dedicated email address, Tourism Industry Support Fund. So please have a look at it and then flip through any questions. I'll leave cards as well so that you can flip us directly, and we can have the conversation. But we'll have people at hand to help you with the application process, and then also work with your regional partners to make sure that the experiences from the region complement each other. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions on the fund? So Leah, with preparing your application, how will someone prepare it and lodge it online?
Yeah, so everything's online. Like I said, we've got a couple of business support managers. So please come through with your, you can lodge online. You don't have to, when you're submitting an application, you can submit and then come back to it. So it will be a live application. We understand that there's it is a long process if you're looking for development approvals or other types of council support letters, etc. for big builds. So we totally appreciate all of that. And if you want to go on and have a look at the guidelines and start your application and then go back and forth and work with either our business support managers or your regional RDA groups, Tourism Barossa, and then work through as a team to get the application in.
Thanks, Leah. And Jen, with regards to ATDW, so lots of cellar doors are doing lots of different things. How many ATDW listings are too many?
Make sure they're applicable to you. So my biggest recommendation is actually jumping on to southaustralia.com and having a look at an example of how your listing does pull through. I did an exercise with a group of people the other day, and it's very easy to criticise other people's, so even if you need to, go have a look at someone else's first, have a look at the things you like, have the things that maybe you can improve on, and then have a look at your own listings as well. The things that we are always encouraging is to make sure your descriptions are really enticing. Making sure that, if you were online and you were searching for something to do, does the description match what the experience actually offers? And then making sure that the images are visually storytell what someone could experience if they were to come to you. The wine industry is notorious for uploading images of a bottle. And as much as that is great in terms of trying to get your brand out there, from the consumer, that's not what they want to see. They want to see that they can come and they can do a wine tasting, or they can sit and have that cheese platter and take in the gorgeous views. So again, think about your unique selling points and then how you can really push and sell that visually, but then also through written copy as well.
And just one back, so if I was developing a new tourism product, how can I get it in front of the SATC, the right people to be featured online? How can I align best to the SATC branding?
Yeah, sure. So as an example, there's been a new restaurant open up in Clare last week, and so it was great for them. They then sent us through their media kit, which had their media release. It had all of images that were available to us to use, and that means that they're keeping front of mind. It means that we can also align with them, so their launch dates. Prior to that, they have everything in place. They have their ATW listing done. We are notified. We can look at how we could potentially schedule that into any media that we are offering. But again, it's just making sure that you have those lead times, appropriate lead times, to enable us to do that. It's really super challenging when we get an email being like, my event's on Saturday, or I'm opening tomorrow. How can you support? So we really want to try and align so that we can go out with the same messaging that you guys are open, or your new experiences are now available and bookable when you do. So it's just the lead times. So we encourage you to get in touch with us, send us through your media releases, any content, any images that we can have access to, because again, then we can push it out to our corporate team, and that can go out via our corporate channels as well.
Maybe it's just worth noting too, because I know the example that you're using quite well, and it's worth noting that if it was left to actually the guy running the restaurant and his partner, it wouldn't happen, but they've outsourced a lot of that to agencies, so that's why it's getting done. And if it's not your thing, think of someone
Yeah.
a third party that can do
agency
it.
had actually come to us and presented and talked about, you know,
Not a
what
bad
can
investment.
no,
Yeah.
it was actually really good.
I think, you know, a lot of the time we get kind of caught up and we think about what's easy for our business, and understandably we all wear a lot of hats at a lot of different times, and an ATW listing can slip down the to-do list. But when you think about the return on investment and what that could potentially mean for your business, you can understand why it's so important to just put that half an hour or that hour aside to making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And that's the same with when you're trying to get the message out there and reach. You know, it might take half an hour to put that through. And when you think about, there's 9,000 listings currently live on southaustralia.com, and when I'm trying to filter through 9,000 listings to decide who we pull out and what we feature across our campaigns, it's super, super challenging, and that's why we have such an amazing team. But it also helps when you guys are keeping top of mind and being like, hey, I've just launched this amazing new tour and you get to do X, Y, and Z, and that's what makes it amazing. And that's why I think it's going to be really attractive to say the interstate or the intrastate market. You're putting it in front of us and we go, oh, actually that might fit in really well when we do X, Y, and Z. So it's about keeping top of mind, sending through that content, letting us know that these things are happening. If we don't know about it, we can't help you.
And we share that with the wider group too. So think for Mills, think, you know, PR.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously at the moment it's a domestic marketing, but, you know, New Zealand's just, you know, our travel bubble's just opened. So it was really quick that the team went and started communicating those experiences to that market. So yeah, it's not just the domestic marketing team or our digital, it goes through the whole entire of SATC.
Yeah.
And just looking back to Leah with the new product update.
I was also just going to add that with the ATDW, just before we moved on from that, it's really obviously essential for marketing, but it's essential for all business in our agency. So anything from for grant funding, any support programs for our corporate area as well, and governance area. So any work that you will do with SATC, we will ask you, have you got an ATDW listing? And you know, and if you don't, we'd ask you to get one. So it's a really important tool, not just for marketing, but
and I think coming back to your original question, can you have too many? I think it's about looking at your core business, and if your core business is a cellar door and that's what you offer, then you'd list as a food and drink. But if you also offer tours and experiences, then you would create a tours listing as well. And that's not because you are a tour operator, it's because you offer tour and experiences on site. And that's further than just your general cellar door tasting that you'd come up and is your day-to-day, that fits within food and drink. But if you do a vineyard tour, if you do a privately hosted tasting through the cellar, that's something a little bit unique, then, you know, the example that I have had of Heather and Yon experiences, that helps differentiate. So if they go on to southaustralia.com and they look up, you know, for example, let's use Atsy's Corner because it was up there. If you typed in Atsy's Corner, it would come up with their food and drink, and then it will come up with Atsy's Corner experiences. So it's making sure that those wording conventions and then naming conventions are really digestible by the consumer, so they can clearly navigate to the content that they want. So that's a tip from that perspective. But yeah, for you guys in particular, I think the three kind of main areas is making sure you have your food and drink for your winery listing. If you offer tours and experiences, having your tour listing, and then if you also offer events, you can continue to update and upload those to feature on those What's On pages.
Thank you. And then the last one there for Lou is the campaign calendar and how that's updated. Will we continue to see information uploaded online so that operators can keep in the loop with campaign work?
Yeah, campaign work on the corporate site. We are just in the process, because we've just changed all of that. We are in the process of uploading all of the campaign elements. For Year of Wine, we don't have a calendar of events because things have actually moved and it is a flowing effect. So we have one for our own planning, but again, we draw from your ATW listing, but anything from a campaign perspective and how you can get on board will be on our corporate site. It comes through the RTMs, and also we send that out for industry as well.
Fantastic. And any other questions from the group?
Yeah, you mentioned online bookable. Now, with cellar door experiences, often that's just a last minute decision by a visitor. But how important is online bookable for cellar door experience for ATDW and
I think-
just for regular tastings.
Yeah, I think being online bookable is super important these days. I know when I look at my behaviour and how I am as a consumer, I get home from work, you cook dinner, then you sit down on the couch and then you start searching and you start scrolling, and you want to be able to book those things when you see them, as opposed to then, making note that you need to ring them during, work hours. Again, consumers are going to be very different in the way that they behave, in the way that they book, but being bookable online is super important, and there's a lot of websites out there that can support that, and Resdi is one that resonates highly with wine industries as such. So definitely, if that's something that you can look into, it obviously has the knock-on effect of then being able to schedule your tours and experiences, schedule your staffing around all of those different options as well. It also means that consumers can keep you top of mind in terms of they know that you're going to offer this experience at this time daily. So when they have a fabulous experience with you and then they go and they share that with their friends, you can go, hey, go and do this. I know that they run that tour at 12 o'clock daily, and so you're just maintaining that top of mind. So if it's something you haven't looked at, then I would definitely recommend having a look and seeing if that can work for you and your business.